There is a civil war waging in Russia and the borders to your home country are closed. So you have been tasked by your provisional government to bring the soldiers home. You board an armored train to take a trip of roughly 9,500 kilometers or 5,900 miles through Russia to Vladivostok to get your boys home safely to the Czech Republic. Hi, I'm the Orcosaurus for the Strategy Informer, and today we are boarding the last train home and find out if it's worth buying a ticket for it.
The story begins with an ambitious captain under the command of Major Gazdik, who leads the last unit of Czechoslovak legionaries, headed to Vladivostok by armored train.
Set right after World War I, during the Russian Revolution, Last Train Home puts you in the role of an ambitious captain, serving under Major Gazdik, and you are tasked to bring a ragtag group of Czech soldiers home to their new country, where a provisional government has formed. However, this is anything but easy, because the borders are closed due to an ongoing civil war between the Tsar loyalists and the revolutionaries of Lenin. In an attempt to get home safely, you and Major Gazdik aim for going towards east. Your goal is Vladivostok, the city that rules the east. So you board an armored train and head for Vladivostok, with a stop in Moscow to pick up Captain Langer, who is supposed to serve an advisor for Major Gazdik. On your way to Moscow, things don't seem right, and you get confronted by the revolutionaries numerous times, even finding out they are going after their own in the name of their cause, ravaging and plundering farmers so they can fuel the fire of their revolution. You intervene on the way to Moscow and set a chain of happenings in motion that will make your journey east infinitely harder, because as you enter Moscow, things are about to go haywire. The story is, according to the developers, partially inspired by real-life events, while other parts are fictional. It is a fictional story set in a real backdrop. The Russian Civil War between revolutionaries and loyalists were pretty much real, while I do believe that the journey of the Czech soldiers is fictional to a degree. My knowledge of Eastern European history, unfortunately, is rather limited, but the game showed me that I need to do some catching up. In any case, in my opinion, the story and writing has been the highlight of the game. The setup is extremely intriguing and you get invested quickly, especially once you enter Moscow, where the story kicks into overdrive. You want to know what the journey holds for you and what comes next for the ragtag group of soldiers. If you look at a more granular level, the story and the writing somewhat starts to crumble a tiny little bit and stops working as well as it does on a macro level, as the soldiers, they might have name and they also somewhat have a personality, but they never get as developed as they deserve in this kind of game. Personally, I never felt too attached to them, and I was willing to make sacrifices in the long run that should have been tough, but these decisions didn't feel tough. But overall, I had a blast with the main story. It was a good tale about survival on a bigger level, sacrificing some granular storytelling for the greater purpose, which is also how the game works. So it fits perfectly. And with that, let's talk about the gameplay. The gameplay is pretty much split down the middle between a resource survival management simulation and RTS missions, which is also divided pretty much into two gameplay loops, but we'll get to that later. The management part is the undeniably bigger part of the game, so let's start with that before we explore the RTS component. While on the overworld map, you are tasked with keeping track of a lot of stuff. Your resources, your train, your troops, your gear, and everything in between. Managing resources is key to survival. You have two main resources, coal and food. Coal is to keep you moving forward, food is to keep your troops fed and the morale stable. If you happen to run out of one of the two, you have a huge issue, especially with food, since this cannot be easily reproduced. You can, however, get some coal by breaking down materials into coal. Talking about materials, there are 6 of them, and I would call them secondary resources that you can use to upgrade your train cards, for example, or to craft something or to trade. You have wood, metal, cloth. You can upgrade the train with those. You can use herbs and gunpowder for crafting or money for trading. As already mentioned, you can upgrade your train cards, and this is pivotal for the later game. For example, you're able to insulate the cards used by your troops to sleep in, or you can even provide them with better heating, or you can upgrade the cards to be more reinforced, to absorb more damage, to break through barricades. This is all important later once you enter Siberia. You can also, for example, upgrade your storage cards so you have barrels, so you can store your resources more safely, so they don't break down and you don't lose anything of value. While controlling the train, you move over an overworld map and visit various points of interest. From abandoned villages to forests to lakes and so on, you go there to collect precious resources. You can also visit traders along the way to trade for weapons, for cooked meals that give your soldiers boosts, or just in general for resources. Talking about your soldiers, they have different abilities that can help you looking for resources. For example, if a soldier has to trade hunter, he will catch more fish at a lake. A burglar will find more money in an abandoned village. However, they're not just abilities the soldiers come with, there's also roles they can take on. For example, soldiers can take 2 different roles, a role within combat and a role on the train. Of these roles, every soldier can learn up to 5 in total. Roles on the train include engineers, doctors, cooks, and everything that would be useful on a train. In combat, roles include rifleman, gunner, grenadier, medic, and scout. Having a good spread in these roles is incredibly important. However, I've personally found out over playing the game, when it comes to roles on the train, you will need a vast amount of engineers because they do everything. They drive the train, they repair the train, they expand the train, they upgrade the train. They do it all. Upgrades on the train can only be done by stopping the train. Also, searching or sending out search parties can also be done once the train is stopped. You can then start moving the train along, but that's basically very bad for your soldiers since they try to catch up with you and can't, obviously. And this leads to another problem, because at a certain point you have to keep moving. The Red Army starts hunting for you, and the longer you remain in a set place, the bigger is the likelihood they will find you and attack you. So you have to move on. And talking about moving on, let's talk about the actual RTS gameplay part. The RTS component of the gameplay feels like a mixture of Company of Heroes and Commandos, trying to take the best part of both worlds and merging them together. With success, but rather limited. While not bad, it is also not exceedingly good. It feels like it doesn't want to decide whether it wants to be Commandos or Company of Heroes. The gameplay aspect that is undeniably influenced by Commandos is the stealth part. It works well enough, but it feels a little bit underbaked in what they could have actually be really doing with the formula given the scenario if they went for a full-on stealth game. While the game does demand of you to be sneaky in some parts, especially when you try to get into a heavily fortified base, I personally sometimes I had a hard time reading the information to properly sneak up to an opponent and get the upper hand on them. It often felt like when I made a move, I often found myself being surprised by an unaccounted enemy or even a group of them, losing a precious soldier in the process. That might be a skill issue, I have to admit to that, but often, like I said, planning was rather hard to do because the environment just lacked information. If you go loud, the game immediately feels better, but this should be planned, since going loud will always cost you precious resources. Every firefight wastes precious ammo, explosives, and making you more vulnerable to attacks while you're on the road. But sometimes you don't have any other choice and you have to storm that hill to get your hands on that mortar to get that advantage over your enemies or to lay an ambush. There is two types of RTS missions. The story ones, for example, what you do in Moscow or what you do in various stations you come across on the map. And there's also side missions that you don't have to do but can do and will also give you an advantage. For example, there is a side mission where you have to raid a recruitment camp that will make later missions easier for you since you cut off the supply of fresh new recruits. If a soldier dies in combat, it's permanent. Depending on the difficulty, you either have multiple chances to pick them up or one chance or no chance. Losing a soldier hurts in more way than one. All the experience, roles, everything they were for you, for your troops, is down the drain. Losing a key soldier with a lot of experience in their roles can hurt your journey a lot. Preserving the life of your soldiers should be your utmost priority, but that's not easy sometimes. Because looking at my biggest main gripe with the game, the AI doesn't make it easy for you to preserve the life of your soldiers. Sometimes you just want to do it yourself and end them right then and there. Because the AI of your soldiers and of the enemy is not great. For example, enemies do rather quickly forget about you if they spotted you. They also don't really fan out all that much. You can basically get a lot of them with a well-placed grenade most of the time. Not that you have many grenades, but still. They usually just run for cover and you can predict where they will take cover because it's gonna be right opposite of you, so you can just already start the flanking process with your soldiers. Your own soldiers often stand idle by and pick nose while their comrades are in a fight. It's a very mixed experience I had. One of the more laughable scenes that I've experienced was reminiscent of a Naked Gun gag, where a bunch of my soldiers shot at an enemy behind cover and all of them kept missing. Not exactly something I was a fan of, but at least it made me laugh. I personally really like the graphics of Last Train Home. There's a lot of love and detail in bringing the environment to life, especially during the RTS segments. Technically speaking, the game ran without a hitch on my 2070 Super and Ryzen 7. Soundscape is also good, the guns sound authentic, the explosions are really powerful and meaty. The soundtrack is really good too, and the voice acting was also on par with the other audio. Overall, the technical side hits well, as it should. In my time with the game, I haven't encountered a single major issue, a bug, or a crash, which is a rarity these days actually. And it should be commended. With a very strong narrative, a very strong survival management sim, and a somewhat mixed RTS gameplay part. Last Train Home makes overall a very strong case for itself. In my opinion, it is definitely worth hitching a ride on. The Siberian tundra is inviting yet unforgiving, and Vladivostok is far away. So make haste and board the train or it'll depart without you. Last Train Home gets a strong recommendation from the strategy informer, this being the Orcosaurus reviewing. And you go into the description, check out all our links, and if you liked the video, give us a thumbs up, leave a comment, and tell us if you hitched a train ride to Vladivostok. Thank you for watching, and bye bye.